that's some warm delays. A little bit of warm delay there. Guys, welcome back. This is Eric here with Guitarsenal. Just noodling around a little bit. We always just improvise this random stuff, and sometimes I make some minor flubs, or in this case, major flubs, but that's okay. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Fender Bassbreaker. We got to kind of noodling around with a lot of the different things that we mess with on a regular basis, and we kind of realized that we never really done just sort of an expose on the Fender Bassbreaker just as its own amp. We've done a lot of different demos and reviews that we've used the Fender Bassbreaker in, so we thought it'd be cool to kind of give it its own little moment and just sort of talk about it a little bit. It's a really cool amplifier. The Bassbreaker series of amplifiers encompasses, I want to say, about 6 different models, maybe even more than that, in Fender's lineup. It's a little darker, a little meaner Fender that is a little bit more Marshall-like, or you could honestly even say that maybe Fender just kind of stole back a bit of the lineage that Marshall helped make famous. You could consider them in a way like maybe miniature Bassmans. They have some very interesting gain characteristics that are very similar to the cleans and dirties of cranked Bassmans. They sound really great. I think for the money, this is probably one of the best amplifiers that Fender's making right now. This particular version is the Bassbreaker 15-watt version. It's got reverb. It's got recording out. The recording out is accomplished by way of the standby switch. When the standby switch is put over to mute, it activates your recording out function, and the pilot light blinks when the amplifier is put on the standby mode. So you have a standby with a mute function for your recording out. You have your power, obviously, and the tone stack of the amp is pretty simple. You basically have 3 different unique voicing controls. One of them is what essentially is your clean sound. Number 2 gets a little bit more into the distortion realm, but still with some nice cleans that you can clean up on your guitar by rolling the volume back. And then on the 3rd setting, you get a little bit more into nuclear mode. And there's also a bright function that you can disengage or engage depending on if you want the brights in there. And of course, you have a simple tone stack. And the controls of this amp, it is a master volume amp, but not quite. It doesn't behave quite the same way. It's a little bit different than just your traditional master volume type setup in terms of how it's set up. And I'm going to have to peek over here at the knobs because it's been a minute. Yeah, so you have a structure control and then the master volume. So you really don't have, like, let's just say 2 different volumes that you have to somehow unify with each other. So basically, if you lower the gain, it can get into cleans, even on, depending on the structure setting, even on the 3rd structure setting. If you just dial out the gain, your volume is always going to be what your volume is going to be on the Fender Bassbreaker. So this is the 15-watt version, but they are covered with the black tweed. They've done a couple of different special editions. Like one of them's like a green Tolex. It looks really cool. They've done, I think, some yellow tweed versions in terms of cosmetics. But it's a cool amp, you know. I like it. This is the 15-watt version. They also do a 7-watt combo, a 7-watt head. They do a 15-watt head, a 15-watt combo, and then the combos get bigger from there. I think they have all the way up to like a 45-watt behemoth that's like, I think they offer a 212 and don't quote me on this. I think they do the Bassbreaker in a 410 as well, but I could be wrong there. It may be a 212 only. Some of the larger combos have basically a selectable wattage. You can go from like an 18 to a 30 watt and switch back and forth, which is kind of cool. The 15 watt is really the only Bassbreaker that I've had a lot of experience with. I've owned this amp now for probably, I've had it about 2.5 years, and I put quite a few hours on the tubes. It's the original tubes, and it's the original speaker. I haven't changed anything on this amplifier from the day I bought it. It's holding up pretty good. It sounds good. Every now and then it'll get some weird kind of microphonic anomalies that we don't really know what's causing it. It could be ground noise from the house. It could be the tubes developing microphonics from just a lot of use. But the amplifier is good. It has a great sound to it in general. Chad is going to just sort of play around with a few of the knobs. Let me get back to just naked amp here. This should be just the amplifier. Let me get rid of this loop. Might be out of tune. That's just the reverb on the amplifier. So it does use, it has reverb. Now, one thing I want to mention about this is that on the 15-watt Bassbreaker, this is the smallest version of the amplifier that has reverb built in. Okay, the 7-watt versions are dry. They do not have any reverb. Okay, so that's just something to consider. And one thing I will say about this combo too, that little joker is heavy as crap. It probably weighs more than a Super Reverb. Even despite it being just a 112 combo, you would think it'd be light. That little joker is heavy as all get out. So here's the naked amp. Neck pickup. Now you gotta admit, that's a pretty nice sound coming out of that amp. If I remember correctly, I think it's on the second gain structure setting, which is kind of in the middle. That's Goldilocks zone. For using that amplifier as a surrogate clean, I guess that would be sort of your clean territory for me anyway. But it's good for adding a couple of pedals in there to kind of juicing up your tone a little bit. So if I added just a touch of drive and just, let's say I have this neck pickup all the way out. Very fat and punchy, which I like a lot. It's a great little amp. It's a closed back, so it's a relatively forward projecting amplifier. We'll get down to the structure. We'll go down to the first gain structure and let them hear the, I guess, true cleans. I'm not a tremendous fan of the cleans, but it's not bad. Anyway, you get the idea. Some nice cleans. Okay. We'll go to the middle selection on the Les Paul here. This is a 72 gold top going into this amp, so we're feeding her a nice vintage guitar. You've heard probably plenty of Fender guitars on this particular channel, I'm sure. If you've listened to any of our earlier videos, we've done quite a bit of work with the Bassbreaker, with Stratocasters, Tellies, things like that. So we're giving the Gibson a chance to make some noise here today. Spanky cleans, you know, not bad. All right, bridge pickup. That bridge pickup on this particular guitar is a little bit lower output than the neck pickup. It could just be the position that we have it in. Let's get over to voicing 3. I know they heard a bit of voicing 2 in the intro. All right, now this is getting a little bit more. May have to lower the volume just a hair there, or maybe the gain. It squeals a little bit where I'm kind of in close proximity to the amp. That kind of stuff, I guess, or whatever. Treble City. Let's break off this tone a little bit. Not bad. The third gain stage is not really my favorite. It's a little cheesy sounding in my opinion. I think you can get some better drive sounds out of maybe using some pedals. And I think really that second structure setting is really where this amplifier shines in terms of its overall available tones. I'm going to add a little bit of delay, just a splash of a slapback. Very bright, very, very bright. See if we can tame it down just a little bit with a jetter. GS124, it's a sort of a Dumble-like kind of sound here. That delay pedal is quite extreme through this amp, and I don't remember having it set up quite like that. Let's try the Analog Man, see if it's a little bit more sedate. Pretty good sounding amplifier. The biggest thing here, I guess the takeaway that we're trying to put forth in this video is that for the money, these are an excellent value. They really are. These amps can be had for pretty well south of $500, and I think for what they cost, they sound exceptionally good. They've got a usable range of tonal sweep and features. The reverb sounds good. The third gain structure doesn't really do it for me, but again, that's a personal preference that many of you may, your mileage may vary in that regard. I think the amps are well made. This one's held up really good for the last 2.5 years. I feel like I got my money's worth. The Tolex is holding up good. Like I said, I haven't really been able to make it make any weird funky sounds in terms of microphonics, but all in all, I mean, original tubes, original speaker, everything's holding up pretty good. It's been a pretty good test bed for effects pedals and things like that for us to demo. I dig it. I think it's a great amp, and I think it's a pretty good practice amp. It's a great amp to have nearby, something to kind of jam into. And this thing could really keep up with some, lower level gigs too. You're not going to keep up with some crazy drummer or whatever, but for a club volume gig, This amp definitely has enough volume to keep up with the drummer in a small club environment. And one detriment, I will say another thing that I'm not a big fan of on this particular amp, is that the voicings, what was that? Structure, the voicings, the settings are not interchangeable with a foot switch. So you have to physically, manipulate the knob itself, and you do have to kind of change the EQ a little bit if the sound is a little bit too extreme. So I wish that those sounds were able to be foot switched a lot easier. And it does have audible noise when you move the knob, doesn't it? Yeah, click it and see what happens. Yeah, there's an audible noise. I'm not a fan of that. So, I mean, if it's in between a song and, I don't know, you're doing your thing, you just reach over and click it, I guess you could do that, but I'd like to see those voicings maybe be able to be foot switched for those that want to experiment with the different voicings. That's one minor complaint, but the recording out is really handy, and it's also got a headphone jack, which is great if you want to do some late night practicing and you don't want to, blow out the neighbor's eardrums or anything. It's great for that. Guys, thanks for watching today's video. We hope you enjoyed this quick look at the Fender Bassbreaker. It's a great amplifier. I like it. I feel like for the money, they're an excellent value. They sound really great. Amplifier does not have to cost a lot of money to still be a good amp. And the Fender Bassbreaker is definitely a good one. Thanks for watching. Guys, remember, we post every Monday and every Friday each week. Make sure you click that notification bell. I'm going to make a little bit more racket for you, and we're going to let you guys get back to your day. But, yeah. Pretty dang cool amplifier. I like it. I think they've definitely got some nice merits to them. So, very cool stuff.